So, thank you, Maman. So basically, I'll just do our quick housekeeping as is necessary. And then Bina is our lovely mental health lead. So she'll introduce everything and then we'll go from there. So thank you all for doing a quick warm up with me. And of course, welcome to our stress management workshop with Gurpreet Singh. We're very lucky. I unfortunately have the fun job of just making you aware of the housekeeping. So just to let you know, the meeting is being recorded and we will upload it to our YouTube channel. So if you're not comfortable having your face being recorded, you can just turn off your video, that's no problem. And if anyone does wish to discuss any sensitive issues during our Q&A and you don't want it to be uploaded to YouTube, just let us know beforehand and then we can edit that section out of the recording so that this can stay a nice safe space for you. At the moment, everyone is muted and it just makes the meeting a lot easier and a lot smoother. But when we get to the Q&A, of course, we allow you all to unmute if you want to ask some questions. You can also post questions via the chat facility. So please post them throughout and you also have the opportunity to ask later as well. Just a reminder not to post any links or images. This does go against our safety guidelines and you may be removed from the meeting. And then just a reminder that we are active on social media. So all of our social media is ARCC Ltd. So you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc., etc. So I will pass over to Bina and we'll go from there. Thanks, Bina.
Hi, everybody. Hopefully I'm unmuted. Yeah, thank you. So thank you all for joining us today. So just wanted to introduce today's workshop. So today's workshop with Gurpreet is part of our Here to Talk initiative by ARCC to raise awareness on mental health issues in the Asian communities. So our aim is to bring mental health topics to everyday conversations without having a stigma attached to it. This is so that we have an understanding of signs to look out for the most common issues faced by our community and our loved ones. So we can all become a champion for our families, friends, and our colleagues. So today, our program is being sponsored by Neil Gant. So if I just go through the agenda first of all before I introduce you to our sponsor. So our introduction, so Mamoon's kindly put it on our screen share for us. So just doing the introductions now, and then so you'll hear from our sponsors, Neil Can Safe Deposit, and then we'll go through a presentation by Gurpreet Singh, and then we'll have our Q&A, and then Lizzie will go through the PP presentation. And then we'll just go through quickly our upcoming activities and then we'll close. So hopefully we can stick to our agenda. So if I just introduce you to our sponsor. So Neil Can Safe Deposit are proud to sponsor this talk on stress management and help the local community of Croydon to look after their mental health and well-being. So Neil Can Safe Deposit is an industry-leading safe deposit centre where you can keep your jewellery and other valuables secure and away from rising burglaries in the UK. They use a robust infrastructure and a state-of-the-art systems to keep your valuables safe. The safe deposit lockers offer an affordable solution and are on special offer to ARCC members, which gives you a 30% discount for the first year. So you will have had the e-leaflet through your email, which you can use to redeem your discount. So, you know, make use of it and have a look at their website. And I'm going to have Rajesh Nair, who is the marketing director for Neil Can Safe Deposit Limited, who will be introducing or giving you a little bit more information about Nilkant. So Rajesh, can I ask you to unmute, please?
Yes, Bina, thanks for the introduction, and great to meet all the ARCC members on this mental health workshop. Bina has kind of given you a brief overview about Nilkant. So we are primarily a community-driven service because we are, we've been in the safe deposit business for about 30 plus years. Bankhouse Lockers was our first kind of service in Wembley. And then we opened in Southall, and now about a year and a half or so back in Croydon. So for us, the community is very important. So that's why we support community activities. And when, Ima mentioned about mental health, we came up with this idea of, exploring with workshops with our consultant, Gurpreet, who is an expert in various, such mental and stress management kind of workshops. So I hope this is a great start for a collaborative partnership. So with Nilkant Safe Deposit, we are here to protect your valuables and serve the community. So any kind of, the burglaries going up and, protection of valuables, that is very important for us as a business. And we offer very competitive rates, almost the best prices for our lockers. And especially for the ARCC members, we've come up with this 30% discount offer. So our prices start from like £60 a year, and you can be relaxed that your valuables are in a very secure place. So if any of you ever wants to kind of come see us at the centers in Croydon, we are on Brighton Road, please feel free to reach out to us. And I hope this workshop is very beneficial. Would love to hear some feedback after this from Lizzie and Bina and the team. And if there are ways of improving it, doing other similar workshops, please keep us posted, and we are happy to support and sponsor. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best, and I'll leave it to Gurpreet to take the session from here. Thanks.
Thank you. Can I just jump in and let people know that if you didn't get the 30% discount on your email, I have just posted it into the chat on this Zoom, so that you can access it no matter what, basically. But thank you so much, Rajesh.
Thanks, Lizzie. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you. So I'm just going to introduce you to our host for the day. So it's Gurpreet Singh. So Gurpreet works as a counsellor and a psychotherapist, and has a private practice in central London and West London, where he works with couples and individuals. He's a qualified Kundalini yoga teacher and a mindful coach. So Gurpreet also works as a business consultant and coach. He delivers training workshops and talks on a variety of topics to understand and improve mental health and relationships. He has appeared on TV, radio shows, and is widely quoted by various media channels like BBC and Financial Times, The Guardian, etc. So when Gurpreet isn't counselling, he is a keen cyclist and a DIY enthusiast also. So if you need any tips, please feel free to ask, not on this the channel, but yeah, it will be good to get some insight of that as well from Gurpreet. So Gurpreet, can I ask you to take away the screen time now, please?
Fabulous. My camera is on top of my screen, which is a very big monitor, and therefore you might think that I'm looking down, but I'm just looking at the screen as I present to you. So I'm going to be doing this presentation. I'm going to share my screen in a minute. If you have any questions as the presentations come up, my suggestion is you save it to the end, but put it in the chat so neither you nor I forget about it, so we can address it. If I can't address it in the session, then I can always email you later and we can talk about it over the phone or something. So I'll address whatever questions you have. And I'll put my contact details in at the end as well. So without further ado, let's start with our presentation. So we're going to be talking about stress management, and I think Lizzie put in easy stress management. I don't know if there's anything easy about stress management, but we'll come back to that later. So it's stress management, and let's start with, oops. So what is the agenda today? In this workshop, we're going to be addressing what is stress, what are the ways to understand stress, even look at why do we get stressed, how we react to it, the biology of it, and what can we do about it. So we're going to be looking at various parts of stress. Now, this is Zoom, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. And if I can, if you're okay, then I will invite you to actually just share your video for a minute, not your microphone, just your video, and just follow this exercise, okay? So we're going to be doing 3 breaths, okay? And in 3 breaths, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breathing in for 5 seconds, holding the breath for 5 seconds, then we're going to be exhaling for 5 seconds, and then we're going to be holding out our breath for 5 seconds. So 20 seconds per breath, approximately. You don't have to time it exactly, it's approximate, right? So my suggestion is just close your eyes for a minute and just follow the sound of my voice, okay? And do it as loudly or as silently as you want. So just close your eyes and go with this. Take a deep breath in for 5 seconds. And hold it in. As long as you can. And let it out. All the way out. Exhale out. And now hold the breath out. And now, if it becomes uncomfortable, you can breathe in. And now take a deep breath in again. All the way in. And hold it. And now let it out. All the way out. Hold it out. Don't breathe in yet. And now take a deep breath in again. All the way in and hold it. And let it out. All the way out. Hold it. When you're ready, you can breathe normally again. You can open your eyes and come back to the session. This is known as the whiskey breath. Okay, and I'll tell you what this is a little bit later on in the session today. So we did the 20-second breath. And let's try and understand a little bit more about stress. Just remember how you're feeling at the moment, okay, as the session goes on. So to understand stress, we need to think about what is stress and what is stressor, okay? So stress is an experience of being stretched. You take a rubber band, you pull it, it's stress, okay? It is being stressed, it is being stretched. Just like that, when our resources are being stretched to cope with a given situation, then that is stress. It is a feeling, it can be in a negative connotation, it can be a feeling of being overwhelmed. Anxiety, anger, inability to cope, all these things are stresses. Stressor is the thing that is giving you the stress. Okay, so if I am unable to cope with my workload at work, for example, then my stressor is my work. So the stress is what is happening to me. The stressor is what is giving me the stress. So if my relationship is giving me stress, then that is the stressor. So it's an important distinction to make between stress and stressor. And when you cannot control a stressor, you cannot control your reaction. So for example, we could not control COVID-19. So we can't also by it follows that we cannot control our reaction to it. I'm just generalizing very broadly here, but I hope you get the idea that when the stressor is out of your control, for example, if I get stressed about going to the airport and taking a flight, then that's a stressor that is somewhat within my gift because that's my anxiety to manage. But something that is outside my control, for example, the delay of the flight, that is then a stressor I cannot control. And therefore my reaction, if I don't prepare for it, is also outside my control. So we're going to look at ways of understanding stress, okay? And the categories are, so the first one is cataclysmic, right? Which affects everyone. For example, COVID-19. It affects everyone. Nobody's escaped from it. Then there is personal stresses, which is life events and issues like work pressure, moving home, divorce, death of a loved one, illness, etc. And then there is background and daily, which is traffic cues. I could leave here and I could be stuck in traffic for the next 30 minutes. That's a stress. But that is a stress that can happen to anyone at any time. So that's like a daily stress, isn't it? So if I have to commute to work, then that's something I'm going to have to encounter daily. It's been raining very heavily in the summer. Weather is a stressor as well, isn't it? Because it stops us from going out and having a good time. So that is also a stressor. Noise, my next door neighbor is getting his bathroom done. That's also a stressor, isn't it? It's a background stressor, but somebody else across the road could be doing it, and that'll also be a stressor. Then there are other ways to understand stress, which is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it trauma related? And is it acute or chronic? Let's try and understand that. Physical stress. I've just been biking this morning. That's a bit of stress, isn't it? So my body has been under a bit of stress, but it's, I've enjoyed it. I willingly subjected myself to that. So that's a good stress. Emotional stress is something, if I'm not coping in a relationship, then that's emotional stress, isn't it? And trauma is something, let's say somebody who's been in an accident, that's physical stress, but the shock of it can also create emotional stress. So it can take two categories at once. And whether it's acute short term, which means, is it only happening to me for the next few days? Or is it chronic long term? And for example, I could have been diagnosed with Parkinson's, for example, and that's a longer term thing. So what is acute and what is chronic? Further understanding of stress. The term less heard of, distress is something that you come across more often, but eustress is less heard of. Eustress is good kind of stress. For example, biking this morning, I told you I willingly subjected myself to that, right? So that is good stress for me. I willingly subjected myself to an exercise that I got a lot of benefit from. So that is a good stress for me. But running a marathon, job promotion, getting married, right? These are some of the good stresses, right? Then there is distress, which is the bad kind of stress. Job loss, death, divorce, etc. These are generally considered to be bad divorces. Bad stresses. But what's the line between these two? So if I enjoy my job and I'm given a report to write, which is going to take me 2 hours, and I hate writing reports, well, that's the bad kind of stress, isn't it? That's not stress I'm going to enjoy. But cycling is a stress I'm willingly subjecting myself to. But what if I had to cycle every day because I couldn't afford a car? That would not be good kind of stress. So what is good stress and what is bad stress is not always clear. It depends. It depends on the context. And it is easy for eustress to become distress, right? For example, and the other way around, distress can become eustress. For example, a job loss can be considered to be distress. But in the longer run, a job loss might mean I get a better job and then it becomes eustress, right? So it can change. So it's not always clear what kind of a stress this is. But generally, the kind of stress we're talking about here today is distress. Then I want you to look at what is an internal stressor. Okay, so we already talked about what is stress and what is stressor. So what is an internal stressor? It could be lifestyle choices. I'm always busy. I'm always busy because that's how my life is, or that's how I've organized it. There's a friend of mine, she's into kickboxing, she's into this, that, and the other, and she's never got any free time. Whenever I ask her if she wants to meet for a drink, the answer is always, I've got like 10 things on. Now, is that a choice? Is that stress she's created? Did the stress find her, or did she, is this a lifestyle choice that she's got going for her? So or you could argue that she's created it for herself through her lifestyle. Then there is the negative self, which is the pessimistic thinking. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. So that is opinion of yourself that contributes to your stress. Because if you don't think you're good enough or you're not coping, then that is a pessimistic view of yourself. That is a negative version of yourself. Mind traps, unrealistic thinking, taking things personally, not being flexible. These are all mind traps that I've created for myself. My unrealistic, so if I have a report to write and I think, and everyone else thinks it's going to take 3 hours to write, and I think I can do it in 2 hours, well, that's an unrealistic expectation that I put upon myself, which is ultimately going to give me stress, right? Because I'm not meeting targets I'm setting for myself. Then there are personality traits, workaholics, perfectionists. These will bring you problems because they are stresses that you're putting upon yourself. So they are internal stresses. And you have generally got, I could argue, more control over internal stresses, because the only thing that is creating stress for you is choices that you're making. You can take a different choice, right? And then there is external stresses. Environmental, for example, climate change. COVID-19 is environmental, I could argue, right? Circumstantial, work and life demands. So people who got new children, newly born children, often go from being, single or married to having children, being a couple and having children, and suddenly life is very, very busy. So you just in that state of life, when you had new children, newly born children, that, or even older children, that, work and life demands just take a lot out of you. Some of them are circumstantial. Some of them are just outside of your control. Some are political. If you're in Afghanistan right now, I imagine life is very stressful for you. Life changes or life events. Death is not within your control. It's an external stressor. It's not something you're doing to yourself. It is an external stressor. But my inability to cope with the death of a loved one will then become an internal stressor. Does that make sense? So it crosses a boundary. It becomes an external stressor and an internal stressor. So you wish they were in easily managed categories, but they're not. They cross boundaries, these stresses. And generally, you have less control over them. You can't control the external stresses as much. You can't control the environment. You can't control, some of the work-life demands that are put upon you. You have to be at work and you have to do work with your life, go through life doing the things that you need to do. Generally, there is less control. But the self-generated part is where a lot of the work's sitting. Quite a lot of our stresses tend to be internal. They don't tend to be external. Yes, external things do happen to us, but how we perceive life, whether we feel threatened or safe, encouraged or discouraged, happy or sad. Some of these are our opinions, right? Some of these are our perceptions. This is how we view the world. And our view of the world changes how we feel. Our perception influences our thinking, which changes our feelings. And therefore, they are self-generated. But here's the funny thing. Most of them are self-generated, but we quickly think that they're external factors. So it's always something to fix out there. It's not me, it's out there. So first step is recognizing the self-generated stress, and we're going to do more on that. So why get stressed, right? Why do people get stressed? We already talked about your perception, right? Self-generated kind of thing. You're under pressure, there's a work deadline, there's children to manage and get to work at the same time, children to get to school and do all the things that you have to do. You're facing a period of change, either willingly or unwillingly. You're going through a divorce, whether you wanted it or your partner wanted it or both of you wanted it. It's still either willingly or unwillingly, you're going through a period of change. Somebody dies, that's a period of change. You lost your job, you retired, these are periods of change. Whether you make that choice or don't make that choice, it creates stress. Okay, so being aware of the stress gives you choices. Loss of control, when you feel helpless. So, you know, when somebody is diagnosed with cancer, there is a whole lot of helplessness that comes with it because you don't have a lot of control over it. When you have an illness of any sort, you don't end up with a lot of control over it. So you feel like you're kind of on this journey that you don't know who the driver is. Fear of loss could be job, reputation. You know, you might be getting a bad name for having done something, family, friends. Fear of loss of anything will automatically create stress for you. Overwhelmed with responsibility. A time of uncertainty. You know, when people get very stressed, when there are economically uncertain times, feeling of helplessness definitely is up there. And the sense of unfairness, right? If you're not getting what is due to you, then there's a sense of unfairness that will give you stress. So a lot of things give you stress, right? Why get stressed? I mean, there are all these reasons and more. I mean, I'm just giving you a list that I came up with, but there are lots more to think about, right? And what are the variables to this? What are the variables to the stress that you're having? What is the kind of day you're having? What's happened in the day? In the morning, if you missed your train, you know, you got to work and you remembered that you hadn't had breakfast and you forgot your lunch at home and the kitchen, and the canteen is closed. These are all contributing factors that will make your day go worse. So on a good day, you might have more resources to cope with the stress. On a bad day, if you don't have the resources, you're going to get far more stressed out. So how full is the glass already? What is you remember we spoke about the 3 categories of stress, and there is background stress. So how full is the glass already with background stress? Did you sit in the traffic for an hour today? Do you constantly have to sit in traffic and it gets on your nerves every single day? So what is the background stress here? Is somebody ill in the family? Is looking after them exhausting your resources? Are you tired from that every single day? Do you have children to get to school? Are you underslept every single day? These are background information. Because if your glass is already half full, then you don't need much to get fully stressed out. And are you seeking the stress, or is stress finding you? What is the resourcefulness to cope, right? Support structure, resourcefulness to cope comes from a point of thinking, if you go through a situation, what will you do to feel better about yourself? Perhaps this stress comes from the fear of the future. It might be a regret about the past, something you wanted to do and haven't done. A relationship where you wanted to spend time and haven't been able to do that. It tends less to be about the present moment, which I find really strange. So you worry about what might happen tomorrow. You worry about what happened yesterday, but you're not worried about the present moment. So not only are you not sure about the past and present, but you're also losing the present moment. So this will help us understand a little bit more about stages of stress. What is the response? What is our response system? So fight or flight is the first response. That is our natural instinctive response. It's a very unconscious, instinctual, prompt response to fight to any stressful situation. Stage 2 is adaptation. So after the fight or flight instinct has calmed down, you go into adaptation. You will develop coping mechanisms, efforts to control, reduce, or tolerate stress. This is adaptation, right? You're trying to reduce it, or at least manage it, contain it. You'll also make efforts to understand it, meet it, and maybe work through it. Try and identify the source and then see how you can find your way through it. Now, if you're successful in meeting and working through it, then it stops at adaptation and you get a resolution. But if you don't, then stage 3 is exhaustion and physical sickness. Emotionally, you're already stressed. So all the body's waiting to do is catch up with what the mind is feeling. And the body will catch up. Stressful people do fall sick. And this is what happens to your body in stress. This is worth paying attention to. Okay, so a threat is perceived. This is the start of the cycle. You see a threat, the body will respond, fight or flight. The prompt response, stage 1, body responds with fight or flight response. Adrenaline rushes through your body to prepare you for the stressful situation that is coming, that has come or is coming. Now, in response to the fight or flight, you will need energy, and the adrenaline is there to provide that energy to your body. So what happens next is your heart now starts pumping faster to supply oxygen, because if you're going to run, your limbs need to have that oxygen supply, right? If you want to fight, you need, your limbs to be, right up there, ready, right? And if you're going to, fight, you also need to be able to respond. Your mind needs to be working to actually respond to all the threats coming your way and dodge them and respond to them. So you need oxygen. The heart has to pump that oxygen out to all the limbs and various parts of your body, particularly the brain. So the heart is thumping not for any other reason except to do what it's supposed to do, which is supply oxygen. That, of course, raises your blood pressure. Follows, right? Heart is pumping, the blood pressure has to go up. Now you're also breathing faster because you need more oxygen. So your lungs have to supply that oxygen. Where's the oxygen going to come from? It has to come from the lungs. So your breathing has to follow that. Now you see about the chain reaction that is coming now. Now that your heart is pumping and you're breathing faster, the metabolism increases because the body anticipates need for food, energy. Where is the energy going to come from? It's going to come from the stomach. So what is the body going to do? It's going to need food. The metabolism has to increase, which is why the stomach starts churning as well. The stomach readies to process more food. Acidity will, of course, increase. It has to. Acid has to go up. And this will follow because the brain is now sending signal to the whole body, get ready, we're at war. So there is a load on excretory systems as well. This, of course, creates, every other part of your body to start acting up. Now I'm going to take you back to the exercise we did, okay? Right at the beginning, before we started the presentation. Now you can't control your heart, you can't control your stomach, you can't control the adrenaline supply, you can't control the acid in the stomach. What is the one thing that you have control over? And that is your breath. Now, what did I do with you? I made you breathe for 5 seconds, hold your breath, exhale, and hold your breath out. And the parts that are doing the work, you'd think it was a breathing, it isn't. You think it was paying attention to your breath, it was, but less was what was actively working. It's the holding out the breath and holding in the breath. Because what you're doing by doing that is you're actually reducing the oxygen supply to your body. Only a tiny bit, but reduction of that oxygen supply means the heart slows down. Heart has got nothing to pump. There is no oxygen. So the heart has to slow down. And because the heart slows down, you're not choking the heart. You're only reducing enough oxygen supply to let the rest of the body calm down. So because there is less oxygen, the rest of your body has to slow down. Now, hopefully, and this has generally been my case, I do this exercise with virtually all my clients, and every single time they tell me that they're feeling calmer within three breaths. Imagine if we can achieve that in 3 breaths, what you could achieve if you just did that for 5 minutes. What if you did that in stressful situations? All you need to do is the whiskey breath. The whiskey breath is literally, the idea is that actually slows you down. Whiskey is supposed to slow you down theoretically. But the idea is that actually if you just reduce the oxygen supply a tiny bit to your body, it gives you the ability to calm down within a stressful situation. And you could do this anywhere. You could do this in the middle of a meeting and nobody will know that you've done it, right? If I just hold my breath now, I mean, how will you know that I've done it? I could do this and standing at a bus stop, train, sitting down, while I'm waiting anywhere, in the dentist surgery, wherever. Nobody, if you're doing it right now, I wouldn't know, right? So nobody else would know. And what a fantastic thing. And 3 breaths is all it takes to slow yourself down. So this is the cycle of stress. This is the biology of it. Once you understand the biology of it and you know what your intervention points are, so managing stress in the immediacy of things becomes really easy if you just do those 3 whiskey breaths. There is an opposite of the whiskey breath, which is coffee breath, which is if you want to pump yourself full of energy, then do a quick inhale and exhale. You do that, a quick inhale, exhale, and suddenly you'll be pumped full of energy because you've increased the oxygen supply to your body. So oxygen has a lot to do with it. Give your heart the energy and the oxygen and it carries on. You slow it down and it has nothing, it has nowhere else to go but to slow the body down. So it's a really powerful thing to do. Be careful though, there are some cases in which it can make you dizzy. So whenever you do this, just make sure that you follow your body and not an instruction. That if your body objects to holding your breath for long, then don't do it. Because the idea is not to make you dizzy, particularly if you've got blood pressure problems, this might happen. So the idea is not to make you dizzy. The idea is to actually help you slow down a bit. So follow your body, not the instruction. Is that okay for everyone? Just a nod is good. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
fabulous. So how do we react to stress? I've already sort of given you the biology of it, right? Then let's look at what happens here. We talked about the role of self in creating stress, right? Which was a really important thing to look at. So how do we react to stress? There is a demand from self. I should be more perfect. I should not make any mistakes. I should always be liked. I should be able to cope. These are all messages that you give yourself. This is what you demand from yourself. I should be able to cope. I should be able to do better. I should be. Any sentence that starts with I should is generally a statement about an expectation from yourself. And you've got to know that the expectation is grounded in reality and not just an overestimation of what you want from yourself, because that's where the danger is. So what do you demand from yourself? Then the next level is demand from others. Like I said, you always want to blame the external stresses, right? You want to blame other people. You want to blame the environment. It's anybody's fault but yours. And of course, unfortunately, by doing that, you disempower yourself, right? So you disempower yourself when you blame it on everything else and others. Demand from the world. The world should be rearranged so it suits me. There should be no traffic, only I should be on the road so I can get a clean ride to work. Well, technically, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's another story. So it's just a demand that we have from the world, right? How do we cope? I'm drinking tea here, right? Is this waking me up or is this my stress for doing the stress management workshop? You be the judge. But caffeine, people drink lots of cups of tea and coffee and all sorts of stuff, sugary foods. Alcohol, drugs, or other addictions tend to fall into place. They're unhealthy styles of coping. Alcohol is particularly a naughty one because it kicks in very slowly and helps you cope, but it's very easy to go too far with it. Smoking, sleep problems, you can oversleep. You can also undersleep, because if you're not coping, you might want to sleep more or at least stay in bed for longer, even if you're not sleeping. Certainly, your REM sleep is disrupted, which means you're not sleeping as well. So the sleep is definitely impacted, right? Comfort eating is right up there. Hands up, I will own up to that. I'm terrible one for that. And this is how I know I'm stressed, because I snack when I'm watching TV. That's my single guide to knowing that I'm stressed: comfort eating. You have to find yours, because if you want to understand your own stress, you have to find what are the unhealthy ways that you cope, because that is your guide. Get to know yourself. Creating debt. If I've got financial problems, I might just borrow on my credit card and not know that I'm doing it. I might even spend. It might be spending, might be my way of coping, right? Relationship problems. What do you do when you're stressed out? You yell, you shout, you get into fights with people you love. What does it do? It creates relationship problems. What is that? That is displaced anger. That is displaced stress. Displaced means that you're feeling it at one place, you're stressed out about a situation at work, but you come home and you shout at your partner. That's displaced anger. You're fed up with the work-life demands, but you have a go at your partner because they're not helping you. That's displaced anger. Are they genuinely not helping you? Or are you just stressed? Are you both of you stressed? Relationship problems are often at the heart of a lot of the work we do. And you can take it out on yourself, self-harming, right? I mean, what is comfort eating? That's taking it out on yourself in a way, isn't it? Alcohol, drugs, these are all ways of taking it out on yourself. Your body doesn't like it, but you still do it. Smoking is definitely up there. They're all unhealthy ways of coping. And what are healthy ways of coping, right? Going to the gym, take a walk. We'll look at some of those later on. So physical manifestation, right? Excuse me. With any stressful situation, one of the things that you have to remember is whether you want to fight, flight, or whatever you want to do, your brain goes into red alert. Your brain is hyperactive. Your brain is constantly trying to think of solutions. Your brain becomes hyperactive, which triggers the rest of the body mechanism, which is what we talked about earlier on, that whole biology of it, right? The blood pressure will go up. Acidity, ulcer, digestive problems, as we discussed before, diabetes, kidney problems, reduced immune system. These are all the physical manifestations that we saw in the cycle of, a couple of slides ago, a few slides ago. And this is all of that. This is all the physical manifestations. Now imagine, when a country goes at war, that when the country is at war, all the resources are directed towards the war front, but you don't direct as many resources at repairing some of the essentials at home. For example, sewage problems, or any of the electricity problems or stuff like that. So home maintenance has to fall for you to divert all your resources to war. That's what the body does. So when the body's at war, it directs all the resources to fighting the stress and saves very little for internal body maintenance. And that's where some of the physical manifestations come from. So the reality check is that stress is not always bad. I mean, you might love your work. You might enjoy what you do. That's a good thing. So that kind of stress is not bad at all. I mean, we love our children. I love my children, but they've been some of the greatest stresses of my life. So despite being a stress, they're not bad. It's not always bad. So some good comes out of that, right? Everyone has problems. They're a part of life. We all have problems. You have problems. I have problems. Some problems are ongoing. Some problems have a lifetime, have a limited lifespan, but they are a part of life. Now, every problem has a limited lifespan. So the problem will come to an end. Some problems may never do, but most problems, at least 95% of them, have a limited lifespan. If you're struggling with a job, you're not going to struggle with the job forever. There is a limited lifespan. And if you start looking at changing some of the things that are creating you stress, then you start having different outcomes from that. And every problem has positive possibilities, right? So losing a job, getting divorced, death of a loved one. Sometimes it's like really strange to say this, but from each cloud can have a silver lining of its own sort. So every problem has positive possibilities. You just can't see them in the moment that you're going through it. So seeing the fact that your job loss will lead to a better life is not possible at the time that you lose your job, because you're worried about how you're going to pay your bills. So the stress is the stress. But if you remember that this is where you are, this is not who you are. So there's a distinction between where you are and who you are. And if you can remember that, then it makes the stress slightly easier to cope with. And every problem will change you, maybe for the good. So I love this. I came across this quote. I don't know who said it, but I love this quote. Now, you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. If you want to solve a problem, you have to bring a different mindset to it. So if you want change, change is coming whether you like it or not. Change is going to come. If I do nothing, and if I just sit in this chair for the rest of my life, I'm going to age and I'm going to die. Change is coming my way whether I want to or not. So what I have to do is to address it is to first think differently. How am I going to solve the problem that I've got in my hands at the moment? So that's the first thing I have to do, think outside the box. What is the first step? The first step of stress is becoming aware of stress. Have you got it? How much stress do you have? And are you coping? Now, right now, if I tell you my stress level is about 2 out of 10, based on the number of things I've got to do for the rest of the day, roughly speaking. I know that because in my mindful practice, I tuned in this morning to find out where the stress level was, and it's 2 out of 10. That's the rating I gave it today. When I'm snacking in the night, I know that I'm not coping, and my stress level is probably around the 7-8 mark. That is my marker, you see. So I have ways of understanding where my stress level is. So awareness, you can't solve, you cannot change what you don't know. If I don't know I've got stress, how am I going to manage it? So the first step is, it sounds like almost saying something that is so basic, yet people forget. The number of times I work with people who don't even know that they're stressed is amazing. Awareness is really not there at all. Have I got stress? How much have I got? Am I coping? So one exercise is worth doing is actually grading your stress from time to time to say, how much have I got? And this is the cycle. It's not a difficult one. It starts from awareness. You become aware of it. You identify the stressor. What is the stressor? And what is the reason? The stressor and the reason are not the same. The stressor might be work, but the reason might be because I don't like what I'm doing. And once you become aware of the stressor and the reason, then you plan and organize, and you implement, and then you evaluate. So for different ways to look at it, right? It's just a cycle, and you go back into awareness because you constantly keep a track of it. Now, we talked about internal stresses and external stresses right at the beginning, right? So how do you cope with stress? So for the internal stresses, in the short term, you might want to reframe an idea. Try and look for how you can see the same idea slightly differently. How can you reframe it? Is there a way to reframe it? I tell you, in my work, I reframe ideas for my clients all the time. And reframing them helps them see it from a different point of view, from a different context. And that is what creates a lot of change for them. In the long term, because if the stressor is self-generated, you need to really think of how you're going to cope. How are you going to change your thinking, your behavior, your lifestyle? Do you need help to do that? So a lot of people think counseling is for the mentally ill. Actually, counseling is really useful for people being able to think through their situations. What do you do about the external stresses, right? Well, you can change the situation. You can avoid the stressor if you can, but also try to alter the stressor. But then you can go further and you can try and change the reaction, adapt to the stressor, or accept the stressor. Somebody said, you don't get to choose the life you're given, but you get to choose how you live it. That's kind of what fits over here. So the greatest weapon we have against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. So stress is coming your way, but are you going to give in to think about how you're not going to cope, or think about solutions that will help you cope? And we'll talk about one really good solution that I found works from time to time. So take control, manage the stress, or it will manage you. Now, if you're not managing the stress, then it'll come to bite you. It'll manage you, which means stress will dictate how you will cope. So you either manage stress or stress manages you. You make the choice. Avoid procrastination. I once worked with a client who brought a laptop from work to home, put the laptop on the dining table, never did any work, and took the laptop back to work. It amazed me. And when I worked with him, I said, so why do you put the laptop on the dining table? And he said, because I can tell myself to remind myself to work. I said, did you do work? And he said, no. I said, well, then why carry on doing it then? I said, because you're constantly looking at failure. You constantly look at this laptop. You can never leave work alone because you constantly need to do it, yet you can't do it. So you're constantly looking at failure. Why carry on doing it? Are you procrastinating, or you just want to feel the failure? And once I said this to him, he stopped bringing the laptop home. So avoid procrastination. So if you're engaging in a habit which you constantly deem as failure or deem as unhelpful, then stop doing it. Either do it, if you're going to bring the laptop home, do the work, or stop bringing the laptop home, because otherwise it just becomes failure that is reinforced daily. Take a break. Sounds obvious, right? Walk away from the situation. It sounds so obvious, yet people forget to do it. And forgive yourself for making wrong decisions. Oh, if I had a penny for every time that was said. We just don't forgive ourselves because we expect perfectionism from ourselves. Somehow we're supposed to be superhuman, but living a human life. I don't know how that works. So this is the stress, and that's the response. And what are the influences in this? Okay. So the influences between the stress in the response, the first one is primary, which is, should I be worried about this stress? What is the stress going to do for me? Do I need to worry about it? What's going to happen? And the secondary part is, do I have the resources to cope? Be that time, money, energy, patience, health, whatever. So the first is, should I be worried about this? What is going to happen? Am I going to lose my home? Am I going to lose this? Am I going to lose that? All the fears will come into play. That is the primary response. The secondary response is, do I have the resources to cope with this? Now, what do? These are both the areas of change. You can't change the stressor, and these two will determine what the response is. And this is what we normally do. We overestimate the primary. So we overestimate what is going to go wrong. We overestimate the worry part of it. We overestimate things that will happen as if you don't deal with this, if the stress is coming your way. And we often underestimate the secondary, which means you underestimate the resources available to us to help us cope. So we overestimate the worry and we underestimate the resources. And that's what unfortunately increases the stress and reduces our ability to go for the response. So role of self, we talked about this earlier, right? We need ownership of our stresses. Change the ones we can, accept the ones we can't. But there is no movement without ownership. We need ownership of our stresses. It's not somebody else's fault. They're my stresses. I need to deal with them. Most of our stresses are internal. We already talked about that. It gives us more control. But people generally want to blame. So don't be an observer in your own life. People often compare, this person is coping and I'm not. And this picture that I found like ages ago, I thought just really tells a really good story. That guy on the boat is saying land, 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 and the guy on the boat is saying boat, boat, boat. I mean, whose story is the better one? So improving mental health, breathe, mindfulness or meditative practice, gratitude journal, prioritize, improve time management, reduce multitasking, walk in nature. I mean, if you Google this stuff, these ideas, and loads more ideas will come up. This is how do you want to cope with stuff is not difficult. I don't know if I've done it here, but so one of the ideas that I want to give you besides this, and I don't have a slide for it, is creating what I call an escape box. Okay, so I call an escape box a box or a journal in which you put ideas, ready ideas that you can access. That so I've worked with a client who was going through a serious situation, externally influenced, and there was not much he could do about it. He was very helpless. And I gave him this idea of coming up with an escape box in which he had ready ideas that on a day when he was feeling stressed, that he could just pick one of the ideas and go do it and not spend time trying to think about. So when you're stressed, coming up with an idea on what to do to de-stress is really hard work, right? So example conversation. I'm sitting on the sofa thinking, I'm really stressed. I think I should go out for a walk. Oh, okay, where should I go out for a walk? And then I have to list all these options and think, okay, I've been there, I haven't been there, I need to do that, not that. But if I've got some ready 3 ideas in my escape box, I just need to pick one of them and go. So I don't need to spend time thinking, should I do this or should I not do this? I can just take the idea and run with it, which means I save myself a lot of work by just having ready ideas at the end of my hand. You could blow bubbles, for crying out loud. You know, you could just go and play cricket in the park or play catch or something. Have some fun. It could be a very simple idea. It doesn't have to be a complicated one. Just have ready ideas. And this idea of walk in nature is just one of the best ideas. So there's this guy, Sean Aker, and he's done a fabulous TED Talk, and you're more than welcome to Google him. His last name is Aker, A-C-H-O-R, and it's one of the most popular TED Talks that I've seen. And he came across this talk on, and he says that based on the research that they've come across, that this is the method that they found that raises the happiness in people very quickly. So he talks, if you do these habits 21 days in a row, then you can see a change in your happiness level for the better. It's almost like immediately. So the things that he talks about are 3 things that you're journaling, 3 things that you're grateful for, a gratitude journal. So when you journal something that you're grateful for or a positive experience, it allows you to relive it, he says. And gratitude journal has many benefits. Exercise is definitely amongst them. Meditation, just mindfulness of any sort will work. And random acts of kindness, which means just writing a nice email to someone once a day. But doing these 3 things every day. Now he says 21 days, and I suggest that if you're going to do it, you do it for at least 40 days. For some reason, no matter which religion or which healing philosophy you follow, there is something about 6 to 8 weeks that always comes up. You break a leg, they tell you how long will it take to heal? 6 to 8 weeks. Any kind of injury, how long will it take to heal? 6 to 8 weeks. The number 40 comes up repeatedly in religions. I don't know what it is about 40, but I thought, so when I tell my clients to do it, I just say, do it for 40 days. And I'm saying to you, do it for 40 days. So if you're going to do this, do it for 40. And if it's benefiting you, then why stop? Just carry on. So gratitude journal, I found, has repeated benefits because you can actually see the impact from it, because it reminds you to be grateful of something. I already talked, I did actually create it. create an escape box, how to bring the temperature down, ideas to help you get away, day trips, even something that will change your mood. And I like this. This is the last slide, and it's about you. My parting thought to you is life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And I really love this quote because for some reason, when I was younger, I used to think, oh, I have to find myself, I have to look for myself. That means that I'm sitting on a mountaintop somewhere waiting to be found by myself. And I'm not. I need to create myself, which means I need to engage in the activities that will create the version of myself that I will like. So life is about creating myself, not about finding myself. And I think that's an important distinction to make. And that is my parting thought to you all. So let's come back to stop sharing. There we go.
Thank you so much, Gurpreet, for that. I hope everybody found that really, really useful. So we're just going to go straight into a couple of questions. So I'm just going to link them together, Gurpreet, and you can answer as you wish. Yeah. So I've got one here. So it says, how do I know if a headache is coming from stress or something else? Is stress linked to anxiety, stroke panic attacks? Does medication help with dealing with stress? And then Jay's got one to ask as well, but if we can start off with the ones that I've just read out, if that's okay.
Does medication help? Yes, sometimes it does help. In quite a lot of the cases, I will say to clients that maybe they need to go visit the doctor and take medication for it, because if they're not coping, if they're not managing, then medication is an essential way of bringing the temperature down. Some people need to stay on it for medical reasons, and they need to be carefully evaluated. But as a way of coping for the short term, it's not a bad idea that while you figure out, for example, I've been working with a client who's been very vulnerable, and to work with her and to help her come to terms with some of the things in her life, medication was really essential as a part of stabilizing the client. So medication is really helpful. It's really useful. But in addition to that, I would highly recommend talking therapies, because you are not objective to your life. And I speak not as just a counselor, but also as a client. I myself have also been a counseling client. That's in fact how my counseling journey started. I never started out I'm actually an IT consultant by background. And I became a counselor because I kept going back for more courses and more training and wanting to find myself again and again, as I was telling you. And in the end, I became a counselor. So talking therapies, even as a client, I will tell you that my therapist helped me reframe my view of my own life. And that improved the quality of my life. So as a client, as I will say to you, counseling, talking therapy should definitely be up there in wanting to understand what you want from life, etc. I don't know if that answers the question. Somebody else said, are headaches a part of stress? Yes, they can be. If they're recurring, if they're intense, if they're related to specific situations, you've got to look at the triggers. Are they coming up randomly? Are they coming up when you're at work? Are they coming up when you're faced with certain situations, or when you're trying to have a discussion with someone? So what is the trigger for the headaches? Or is there a recurring pattern, or is it a medical reason? I mean, high blood pressure will give you headaches, right? But high blood pressure could also be a sign of your stressed out body. So headaches can be, but let's not rule out medical factors. So if you're getting recurring headaches, go see the doctor too. But then at the same time, also work through your life issues to understand what might be leading you to that. I don't know if that answers the question. Yes.
Yeah, and I've got Lizzie's got her hand up as well. So just one more from Lizzie. I think Lizzie raised the headaches one anyway. So Lizzie, did you want to come in there?
Thank you.
And we can answer
Yeah,
one
I
more.
was just,
yeah.
Yeah, and I know Jay's waiting as well, so I'll pass over to him afterwards. But I was just wondering, so with the talking therapies, I think sometimes what happens, or at least when I'm talking with clients and stuff, is, you know, they're so stressed and anxious that like they don't even know how to get out of that, to even know who to ask for talking therapies, or like where do they go for that? Like, do they go straight to their doctor, or should they find a private person, or should they go to a charity? Do you know what I mean? You know, when you're in the midst of it, like, how do you even know where to go first?
Find through personal work, again, I can speak from a counselor and a client perspective here, because I ended up with a counselor that I didn't get along with. And I had to leave that counselor and then find a counselor who I did get along with. So finding the right counselor is really important, because if you get along with them and you're able to create trust in the relationship, that then becomes the foundation of doing some really important, work. But the counselor has to be objective, right? So part of the reason for working with people I don't know is because I'm objective to their lives. And in trying to explain to me what they want to explain, sometimes they end up explaining it to themselves. So sometimes it's really strange, because when I speak to a friend, right, the friend is going to try and guide me, bring their own influences in their life, do other things. Whereas when you speak to a counselor, it is objective. And when I speak to my client, I'm not trying to be the expert of their life. I'm trying to be the expert. I only claim expertise of my own life. And even that sometimes is questionable, but that's a whole different story. I'm trying to be, as objective as possible, and trying to help them become the expert of their life. So where do you start? You start from someone credible, who's got expertise, whose face you like, who has got a good profile, and you pick with someone you think you will get along with. And sometimes sometimes you can make, land in one hit. Sometimes it's worth trying out a different counselor just to get a different perspective. But talking therapies as a way of detangling your ununderstood stresses in life is a fabulous way of detangling your life. Actually, it gives people new directions. So yeah.
Thank you, Gurpreet. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Gurpreet. Just one more from earlier. So that was, is stress linked to anxiety and panic attacks?
Oh yes, it is. What is anxiety? I mean, I could do a whole talk from here, really. Anxiety is definitely a part of it. What is anxiety other than being anxious about the outcome of a given situation, right? So anxiety is a necessary part of stress. Stress is going to lead to anxiety. I'm anxious about something, therefore I'm stressed. I'm anxious about how something will turn out, and therefore that will give me stress, because I don't know how the story ends. And that lack of knowledge is going to give me anxiety. Anxiety, we're very familiar with anxiety to in a negative connotation. I mean, we also get anxiety in a situation that is friendly to us, right? I mean, sometimes, when your child goes out, and whether they're going to be safe, whether they're going to make the right friends, these are all topics that will give you anxiety, right? When you send a report, will it be well received by your boss? These are all things that are going to make you anxious. These are manageable anxieties. But when the anxiety becomes unmanageable, it is bound to lead to stress. So anxiety and stress have I would say, a sibling relationship.
Yeah. Okay, and one of the other ones is also, can bad stress cause stroke if someone is suffering sort of long term?
Now, if I take you back to the biology of stress, right, then you can imagine the impact on the heart, right? And the heart and the brain. You can imagine that the brain is in overdrive. And all these muscles and the blood pressure and all these stresses on your body components, because let's imagine that you need to do some repair work on your body, and your body's at war with stress. You don't have the resources to do that repair. Body, when you sleep, your body does its own maintenance and stuff that our unconscious takes over, right? So all this stuff is not being done when we're not looking after ourselves during stressful times. So can it lead to stroke? Yeah, it can lead to diabetes. It can lead to kidney problems. If you're drinking too much alcohol, it can have liver problems. So, unhealthy styles of coping, if I snack late at night, then it's going to affect my metabolism, isn't it? So I can expect digestive problems because I'm eating so late into the night. I'm going to sleep with a full stomach. So that will also happen. So will your body pay the price? Oh, absolutely. It will pay the price.
Yeah. I'm just going to let Jay have the floor now for a minute. Got about 6 minutes into the Q&A. So if there is anything else, please do post it on chat. So Jay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bina. Thank you very much. Gurpreet, that was absolutely wonderful and excellent. I have done expert patient program. I've done a course in coaching as well. I think this is just a comment. This would be a very, very useful presentation to be done to our health champions who are going out within the communities to talk to them. And I think from what you just said, talking to somebody that you don't know, and you can have a very good, what I would call a non-biased discussion, it would be absolutely wonderful. Because that's, to build a trust and relationship, I think you need to take the guidance that you've given us today. It's one of the most simplified version of stress management presentation I've seen. You haven't bombarded us with any terminology that's totally out of context. If you like, you don't understand it, so why would you understand what it means anyway? So it's been very simple. Thank you very much for that. And the question I have is, based on my, if you like, going through the thought process while you're presenting, yes, I have one long-term condition or two long conditions, diabetic and blood pressure, the two killers, if you like. And from the internal stresses that you mentioned, I started thinking about the personality trait and thinking about myself. Yes, I am very motivated. I'm very focused. I'm very positive thinker, but I'm also alcoholic to go with it. And I also set expectations that are sometimes too high to achieve. But I try my best to achieve it, and I work as hard as I have to do to get it. But related to that, when you have that, and when you then showed us how the heart starts pumping, and how the heart starts then creating high blood pressure, I wonder if that was the one that actually created me having high blood pressure in the first place, or diagnosed for it. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
That's quite, that's so many layers. Where do I begin? See, you connected quite a few stories there. You connected your blood pressure, you said, and you connected your diabetes, alcohol, and then you finally led down that path of the heart pumping. It's true. I mean, like I said before, first of all, there is a medical, there's diabetes in my family, right? So I eventually down the road, I'm going to become diabetic. Hopefully not. I'm trying to keep it as bay, and my cycling and my exercise regime is part testament to my desire to keep it at bay. But, these stresses on life, they're inevitable. So I've also had stresses in my life, and I wasn't dealing with them. My body did start to give way to it. And some of that is still around, so now that I know better, I wish a younger version of me had known what I know today. But then that's a very famous story, isn't it? I can only work with what I know now. So did some of the problems, did my unhealthy ways of coping with stress lead to some of the problems I have today? Yes. I'm telling you from my own story. Yes, they did. I can tell you accurately that they did. But that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Right. I can't, like I told you, we worry about the past and we worry about the future, but we don't catch the present.
Yeah.
So whatever my past created my future, if I stress about that now, I'm going to lose even more of the future that I've already lost. So why lose what is still to come?
Yeah.
That I still have some control over. Now I know what I know. Why not change some of that? So that responsibility today, I will take ownership of that responsibility. So now I have control of my stress because I have ownership. Once you have ownership, you have choice.
Yeah.
You don't have ownership, then you're a victim of your circumstances. Now you decide whether you're going to be a victim or a survivor.
Absolutely.
And that is a single way I look at it. So what do? I help people take ownership of their lives. Because people live unconscious lives, and you got to move from unconscious to conscious. You got to decide, this is what I was doing when I didn't know, but now I know. What am I going to do now?
And I think taking ownership is something that I picked up at the beginning of this year through the expert patient program. And yes, the breathing lessons by Lizzie, the breathing lessons by Lizzie, and the one we just had this morning as well. It is something that is very, very important in terms of me now managing my future, if you like. And that is probably one of the biggest advocacy I can play to why people should start managing their health. And if they're not aware of how to do it, I think the presentations like yourself and the course we run in Expert Patient Program are probably one of the best things we can offer to our communities.
And there's this guy, there's a Sikh guy, Fauja Singh. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
And he was 90 years old, and he went to the doctor and complaining about his knees problem. And he's 90 years old, right? He turns up to the doctor saying, my knees hurt. He says, well, if you were younger, I'd tell you to start running. But, seeing your age, I think, maybe if you can just walk a little bit more, that'll be fabulous. The guy starts running. He ran a marathon at 92 years of age.
Wow.
He's run the New York Marathon, the London Marathon, and God knows how many marathons. He was still running at 100. He's just retired.
Amazing.
So when is it too old to change? You ask that guy. At 90 years, he was not too old to change. So if he can change at 90, well, I'm not 60 yet. Do you know what I mean? I have no excuse.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Excellent. Thank you, Gurpreet. Can I just ask one more very, very quickly? Can stress cause arthritis?
I don't know is the answer. I have not seen obvious links to arthritis. And I don't know enough about arthritis to be able to say that. So okay. I don't know the answer.
Okay, thank you for that. And there's another one, but I'm not sure if we can I'll ask it anyway. So what is the clear difference between anxiety, stress, and depression? Can you wrap that up in a minute?
No, I can't. That's like it's like you need to explain all three of them to some extent. Stress and anxiety, as I explained, are already siblings, but depression, depression in a non-medical and non-bipolar way can come about. Depressive mood is a better way to think about it. If you're not coping and the stress is overwhelming, then depressive moods can be a consequence of that. And that's the best I can do in this moment.
Okay, thank you. I hope that's answered everybody's questions and I haven't missed anybody out. And now I'm going to hand you over to Lizzie, who's going to be talking about the EPP program, which Jay has already mentioned a couple of times. Thank you.
I know, I was thinking it looks like I've paid Jay or something to say, but thanks for mentioning it already. That's fab. So yeah, obviously massive thank you to Gurpreet. There have been some really good questions in the chat. So I do just want to highlight that we want to continue working with Gurpreet long term. So hopefully, if he's willing, we will have other sessions with him as well. So please don't worry if you did not get a question answered or anything. And we will also be putting this recording onto our YouTube channel. So while you were listening to this, you thought, oh, my friend blah 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 would really benefit, then please probably by next week, end of next week, it'll be up on our YouTube channel and you can share it with them. So I'm going to quickly talk to you about the Expert Patients program. Some of you have probably either gone through the course or have heard me present before, but I really do just want to highlight it quickly because we have 2 courses starting next week, and we have 2 places left on each one. So now is the time to grab the course if you haven't already. So let me just share my screen. Bina, can you just confirm that you can see that for me, or Gurpreet or someone? Yeah, brilliant. So I'm presenting from the Asian Resource Centre, but this program is run in conjunction with our partners, the Croydon BME Forum, and basically the course is open to absolutely anyone in Croydon. So please come along. It's a 6-week course, and we've mentioned a few times today about long-term conditions, and this course is for someone with a long-term condition. So something affects you daily or for a prolonged period of time. So that could be something like diabetes or hypertension, but also things like anxiety and depression, which is why I'm talking today. So do pass it on to other people, but also think about yourself if you can learn to self-manage your condition better. Over the 6 weeks, each week we do cover different topics. So, hope that you can come along to as many sessions as possible. And we look at the commonalities of a long-term condition. So that might be pain and tiredness. That does come along with most conditions, unfortunately. We look at coping with frustration, because there might be frustration with dealing with healthcare professionals or with your family or with yourself even. Coping with like feeling low, other emotions that come up of coping with something daily. And we look at a lot about communication. So communication with your professionals, but also communication like how you talk to yourself and also how you communicate with your family and friends. And then we do lovely things as well. So things like relaxation techniques and meditation. And of course, if we want to be healthy and look after our long-term condition, we do look at healthy eating and exercise. And the thing that I think makes this program work so well, and probably Jay would advocate, is that we make action plans at the end of every session, and we go through those with you really clearly as tutors to make sure they're realistic, so that every single week you get a sense of accomplishing it. We know that we're setting you up to get that feeling of success every week, and that slowly you'll make those positive changes. EPP has been running for like 35 years, but in Croydon, we've only just got it this year. So that's why you hear me talking about it a lot, because I'm super excited that we have it in Croydon. And because it's been running for so long, we have heaps of evidence that it has helped people be in more control of their life, not just their long condition. They feel more confident. Their relationship with their healthcare professionals and their families has improved. And it helps people really be realistic about how they can cope within their family unit and independently. And most importantly, they do leave with new skills and knowledge. So the things I always get asked, do you have to pay anything? It's absolutely free the entire way through the 6-week course. And we do post a self-management manual to you, which is incredible. And we post that to you for free as well. So if anyone asks you for money, then it's definitely not my course. So this is all for free. You do not need to be referred. You can be if your doctor thought it'd be useful for you, or if a carer or someone else thought it'd be useful for you. We don't mind if you're referred, but of course you are most welcome to just go onto our website, find the registration and just refer yourself. Easy peasy. And the course runs for 2.5 hours a week for 6 weeks. And at the moment it is on Zoom. And every single course is delivered by 2 fully trained tutors, and they all have an experience themselves of living with a long-term condition, so they can talk to you with some personal experience as well. And we have courses running throughout this year and into next year, and currently they're on Zoom, and moving into next year they will also be in person. But the reason I'm talking today is we have courses literally starting next week, and both courses have a few spaces left. So please feel free to inquire or call me or find out more, because I do like to try and get the courses nice and full. And as you can see, to make it nice and easy, it's always the same time, same day for the 6 weeks. So you don't have to remember too much. And if you do want to know more, you can just email me, call me, but likewise, you can also email or call the BME forum as well. And all I'll do basically is just send this form to you. If you don't like doing online forms, I can, of course, do it with you or post it to you. So I hope it's made as easy as possible. So thanks, Bina, for letting me talk.
Thank you. Thanks, Lizzie. So just going to quickly run through. Can you hear me? Well, I'm
Yeah.
muted. Yeah. I think Mamoon's just going to share a screen for us. So just weekly activities coming up. So we've got the food bank. That's an ongoing thing every Tuesday. And the next thing is a weekly dance therapy as well. Most of you attend that anyway, I think. So if you wanted to get your friends or family to attend, tell your colleagues as well. So it'll be great to see lots more people there. And Lizzie will talk you through the Pilates classes.
Yay! Yeah, so every week on Fridays we do Pilates 11 a.m. And that's for free as well. And basically it's like seated Pilates, and then halfway through we move to standing Pilates. So please feel free. It's on Zoom, so we can take quite a few people. So yeah, please feel free to come along to that. And the other project I run, the long-term conditions project, we are running free health checks throughout Croydon. These are just the next few, but we have them running till December. So the next one's at the Al Hidayah Mosque on Saturday, the 18th of September. This one specifically is for women, and then we have one for men as well on the 2nd of October. Cool. So our next virtual time we're going to meet you, so a bit like today, that will be on Thursday, the 23rd of September. And this one is specifically support around stopping smoking, which Gurpreet, did mention as a stressor for us. You yourself may not be a smoker, but we do really want to encourage people that this is a really safe space to get some ideas on how to support stopping smoking. So please do let your friends and family know, because it can be a bit of a scary thing to approach. So just let them know that this is going on Thursday, the 23rd of September.
Excellent. So we've
ahead,
got
Bina.
So this one is, what will they say, is going to be the next program that's going to be run for my project, which is the Here to Talk program. So I'm hoping that all of you will come to this one. Please do register. So you will have had an email about this as we were having this session, actually. So please do register for this one. This is going to be one amazing session, and we really, really want you to come and be a part of that. So that's all our events coming up. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for attending today, for your time, and to Gurpreet for the amazing presentations. The escape box is going to be one of my favorites, I think. I'm going to go and start planning it today, like now, actually, after this meeting. So I hope everybody has got something from today, and just wanted to say thank you and enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Gurpreet.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.